SABC RSOs and budgets and things more aptly. And we're going to be covering pretty much what is SABC. I'm going to go over types of funding with overview and guidelines, and then finally tutorials on how to request and use funding for your org. So we are the Student Activity Budget Committee, and I am the president, Kenny Miller. My vice president is the SGA Comptroller, who this year is Aman Chishti. And the committee is comprised of 5 to 9 members, all being students of the University of Missouri St. Louis. And what we do is the SABC is intended to provide support for recognized student organizations and also for opportunities to which they might not otherwise have access. We meet weekly as needed to review budget requests, and to water that down, SABC provides money. Oh, I don't want this little notification here. Provides money to orgs for events, general operations, all sorts of fun stuff as we'll get into. Ooh. But also, we are currently accepting applications for new members, which even if you are a treasurer or a president of your RSO, you're still able to join SABC. It's only a weekly time commitment. Currently, our meetings are set to be about 2 o'clock on Fridays. It's a great way to get involved and learn about different orgs. We're usually the first to know about cool events happening on campus, because if somebody needs food from Sodexo catering, they come through us. And SABC members are eligible for the Louis Leaders Rate if you are on campus housing. Oh, I didn't go back yet. So to do that, you would go to our MyEngage page for the SABC, and under forms, we have that application process if anyone is interested. Oh, somebody wants to join. Admit. Okay, they're joining. Oop. Back to this. So I'm going to go over the different types of funding that we provide. We have 3 categories. The first is general operations. These are day-to-day expenses. You know, if you need pen, paper, and there's no time requirement for requesting these. As you'll see with our other budget requests, we require a certain amount of time to process those. But examples would be papers, pencils, highlighters. We also can do t-shirts. We cover up to $8 per t-shirt, up to 100 shirts. The only way that the no time requirement would not apply to t-shirts is if you need them by a certain time. We usually prefer 4 weeks before you need it, so we can make sure everything gets processed correctly. So if you just want general t-shirts for your org and you don't need them by a certain date, that's fine. We also can do printing for flyers or posters and other advertisements. We also do team development. And now these have to be obvious team building exercises and activities. We can't just pay for you guys to go have dinner or have a fun day at Six Flags. There has to be an obvious team building component. You can have a maximum of 3 of these in a semester, 5 for a whole year. And these need to be submitted 4 weeks in advance when you're requesting funds. So common, these can be retreats, leadership seminars, etc. And then finally, which will probably be the most used budget type, is programming. And these are going to be events hosted or co-hosted by your org. This year, due to the ongoing pandemic and ever-changing safety guidelines, all events must be held on campus or virtually, so we cannot hold events off campus, or at least we will not fund events that are to be held off campus. And like team building, these need to be submitted 4 weeks ahead of your event. So I provided a few different examples of events that you could hold. You could host a trivia night. Those are pretty easy to do virtually as well. We can bring in guest speakers. So SABC can pay for honorariums, which is like a speaking fee. Say you get a professor from another university, you really want to talk about something. They can present. We'll pay for them to come out. We pay for lodging, all that stuff. Or, host de-stress events. There's a lot of different ways you could use SABC funding. Now, this is just kind of a way to give you an idea of how the process works. So you, either president or treasurer of your org, you will submit a budget request. So then the Friday of that week you submit, the committee will meet to review the request. Then award letters will be sent and funds will be allocated, which will say, hey, you're getting this much. Then you would have that funding and you would work with the OSI to submit a purchase request to spend dash money. And then you enjoy your event, team development, or whatever it is that you're requesting funds for. Now we're going to get into a bit of the guidelines, and this is cool stuff. As I previously mentioned, SABC will cover $8 per t-shirt up to 100. We also can do door prizes, competition prizes, and this would be if you're to have, say, a random drawing at an event, or if, say, you're having a trivia night, we can pay for prizes. We can provide up to $200 per prize for an event. Note, if a prize exceeds a certain amount of money, you'll have to adhere to the OSI's awarding of prizes policy, which would just mean whoever wins said prize would have to come to the OSI to claim it. And there's technically no limit on how many you can buy, but there is a cutoff of sorts. If you just try to get 20 pairs of AirPods, that's not flying. Previously mentioned guest speaker and honorarium. And then also we do fundraising where SABC can put up the initial startup cost for a fundraiser, but that initial amount must be repaid to the SABC and the org would keep the leftover profit. So say you wanted to buy a bunch of wristbands for your org at $1 a piece, and then you wanted to sell them for $2 a piece. As long as SABC gets that money back, then it's fine. And say the fundraiser is unsuccessful, we're going to let it go. We're not going to hound you for money because it's meant to be spent on orgs. So there's that. These are the big no-nos. No alcohol at events. SABC will not pay for alcohol. Another big thing is events must be open to the entire campus community. You cannot request catering for an event that is closed off. This also includes events not intended for students, such as departmental gatherings or alumni events. So if there's any denial of access, we will not fund it. No gift cards. A lot of people ask for gift cards, and that is a big no-no. But we do have a system to provide credit to the Triton store as a prize, in which case the winner of that credit would come to the OSI and go down with a faculty member and pick out what they want from the Triton store, and that's how that could work. SABC does not cover transportation to and from events, so we don't do Uber, rental, etc. The only exception is for a guest speaker. And then finally, SABC funding cannot be used as a stipend or payroll for executive officers in an RSO, which we've not had anyone try that, but it's a good rule, not paying yourselves. So I have provided, this is our little rubric that we use when we examine requests. And so it has multiple categories and it shows what we look for and how we score it. So there's past funding and budget, which this is where we look at, did you spend all that we gave you last time and did you spend it properly? If you're saying we want to buy t-shirts and then you try to buy something that is not t-shirts, that goes against you. Same as if you say, hey, we need $100 for this thing, but you only spend like 50. There's a bit of a responsibility there because it means you're not really planning out how to use these funds that you're requesting. So that can also negatively impact you. Of course, we make exceptions in this regard. if there are any problems. We've had orgs have to cancel events. Like right before COVID, I believe a student org was planning a very big event. It would have been like a fair practically, but it had to get canceled because of COVID. So we didn't hold that against them because it was out of their hands. We make sure if you regularly utilize MyEngage, so it means updating your officers. Do you post when you're having events? Things of that nature. There's a lot of things you can do with MyEngage. Submitting it correctly. So this means if you try to get funding for a programming event, but you use the Gen Ops budget request, that's not submitting it properly. So we look for that. The request adequately represents RSO need. So this is saying, well, this is reasonable. You have to adhere, obviously, to SABC and UMSL policies. And then this final big thing is supplemental information, which this just means usually screenshots of, say, you're working with a t-shirt vendor, give us a screenshot of that email so we know where you're getting it from, how much it is. If you're ordering off of Amazon, that would be a screenshot of the cost of the item, what it is. And this is to better help us get it for you so we know exactly where the money is going and what we would be purchasing on your behalf later down the line. And then finally, we want to make sure that you're active, except this is in a little bit of a standstill because COVID. So we're not holding it against you if you've not been holding events under these circumstances, but otherwise that would play a part in the grading process is, are you active? And then we have bonus categories for makeup points, quality of budget request, which is how well did you adhere to the rules of the request? Are you being very detailed? Also, if RSOs partially support themselves through alternative funding, which could be having a fundraiser budget, being able to receive funds from departments, etc. And then collaboration with other RSOs and campus departments. So, because we have a lot of clubs that do events, they co-host events with each other often. So that's where that would come in. So you can get a total of 35 points with bonus categories. You can get up to 41, I believe. Am I good at math? But the way we score it is, if you should fail in one of these categories, then that would bring down your total score where you would receive a percentage of funding. If you get a 35 or higher, 100% funding, you're good to go. But if you're lacking in some areas, you could receive 91% of your ask, 82, so on and so forth. And now we've reached the part where we will go over how one would submit a budget request. Firstly, you would go into MyEngage, sign in, and then you'd hit this little top right menu button next to your icon, and you would select Manage. It would take you to a different screen, and you'll select your org, and it'll show all the orgs you have involvement with. And then you'll go up to the top left and select the little hamburger menu, and that'll open up, and you want to go down to Finance. From there, it should look like this image on the left, and you'll hit Create New Request, and then you would select Create Budget Request. Then you'll see a screen that looks like this, where it'll show you the different funding options. So you would choose whether it's general operations, programming, or team development. In this example, it's programming request. So you'll fill out the many things. What's the name? When do you need it by, the date? You would give a detailed description of what will be taking place. It'll ask if you posted it before. And then there is, do you understand how this works? And you would say, I agree. Then you get to the budget side of the things, where this is where you will add, you'll select add item. And this is where you ask for your money. This is where you put the dollar amounts and what specifically you're trying to request from the SABC. So the image on the left is an example of one of those line items. So say food catering expense from Sodexo. You want to put a link to Sodexo or wherever you're buying from. And in this example, say you're having a taco party with drinks, anticipate having about 20 participants. A taco party is $9 per person, and the drinks are $1.75 per person. So below, you can either put the quantity as one value and enter the total cost, or you can put the individual cost of the item and adjust that quantity, where instead of one by $223.75, you could go 20 people buy that individual quantity. Either way, individual cost. And then under support document, this is where you would put your supplemental information. And so in this example, there's the taco bar party, the bottled water, and that's completely sufficient. That's all you need, is just to show this is from Sodexo, this is what the prices are, this is where we're getting it. And then once you have all of your different line items, you hit submit. And that's that. So then it comes to us and we review it and we award funding. Then you would submit a purchase request where you would utilize the funds awarded to your org. Second verse, much like the first, you sign in, you select manage, click on your org. You go back to that finance tab. And then you go back to create new request, but wait, you hit purchase request instead. Now, this is very important because if you have an approved budget request from the SABC, then select Populate from budget. And what this will do is it'll show all your budget requests that you've made. You'll select the one that is particularly for this purchase request, and it'll autofill a lot of that information in. Or you can do it manually, but populating from budget is just a time saver. But it's important to be as descriptive as possible and include links for your online orders. For example, links to products on Amazon, providing the Sodexo link would be just as good. And then there's the payee information, which is where you're telling us who's getting paid. And be as detailed as you reasonably can be. For example, under first name, if you're getting from Amazon, you would just put Amazon, so on and so forth. Then there's an additional info where this is where you will be required to attach supplemental information. And that's why we try to get it out of the way early on in the budget request section, so you have it for later, because you're going to need it regardless. And this is so we accurately know what you want to order. If you're trying to order, I don't know, say some prize from Amazon, then we don't know what you want because there's a lot of stuff on Amazon. So you want to be, so this is to help us get you what your org needs. And this is why you have to be very precise and specific. Then when you're done, you select submit request, and that's done. So I'll be opening it up for questions. Oh, and if you need to contact me, you can go to sabc@umsystem.edu, and I'm Kenny Miller. Back to Zoom. Stop share. So yeah, I'll just open it up to any questions. Oh.
Hey, Kenny. So I'll introduce myself real quick. My name is Blake Schlieser. I'm a business support specialist for student affairs, and I'm the guy who helps out and processes a lot of your purchase requests. I'm always available via email for any questions that you have. If you're wondering how to go about something, what types of stores are the best stores to purchase from, or any kind of random purchasing supply request type questions, you can reach out to me. One thing that was brought up to me was postage. How do we get postage paid for? If you're a student org, you need to mail things out. So that's been a little bit tricky. We do have a post office on campus, on North Campus. But it's been a little bit tricky to get them to charge the student orgs directly. So I'm going to look into that and see if that's changed. As of right now, if you would need to pay for postage, you would need to go to a post office yourself, pay for mailing out whatever you need to mail out for your student org, keep the receipt, and then you can fill out a reimbursement form. So whoever was the student from your org, whoever's name is on that receipt, who made the purchase, that's the person who we could reimburse. And the reimbursements do take a couple weeks to process. And then you would get a check back to cover those costs. So I think that's the only note that I have at the moment. But yeah, I'm open to any other questions as well.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that, Blake. Looking at the chat, I see Tori has a question about team building for Triton vets. Is this something you want to discuss here, or would you like to send me an email?
I talked to Blake about this beforehand, but just in case anybody else is interested, a team building activity such as like national conventions. I don't know what other student organizations have a national level. I know both Triton Vets and Phi Alpha does, and each of these organizations have their like annual and national convention. So a lot of costs are going to incur because of that, like registration fees, getting out there, lodging, etc. So I just want like a generalized idea of like the limitations of like what we can request for, like, can we request for flying out there, or if we travel, is there like a cap on that? Can we request for like lodging fees or like a food stipend while we're out there? And can we request for registration fees?
Yeah, so registration fees for conferences, we can handle because we have a lot of orgs, whether they're going to attend conferences or sometimes we even host conferences here. So yes, for fees like that, SABC can fund those.
And I know that you mentioned stuff on campus or virtual, because the upcoming National Convention for Student Veterans of America is in Orlando, Florida in person. So that's another barrier or question that we have as Triton Vets is like, you know, what can we do? What can we not do? And it might just be a matter of like hosting like an appointment with you, SABC, and Blake, and just discussing that in depth, because there's just a lot of questions we have, and we just want to do it right by SABC and the university. Yeah, we're just trying to like save as much cost as we can for our students and also offer that cool opportunity for student veterans, because I have gone to the past 3 NatCons, like the last one was virtual and the first 2 I went to were in person, and it is so amazing. There's a plethora of information for military connected students, and like I don't want anybody to miss on that opportunity.
That definitely makes sense. Yeah, that is something I'll have to talk with the higher ups about. And I'm sure we can easily arrange a Zoom meeting between all of us and discuss it, because that is a very good question. Is there anything else, Tori, or is that about? Okay. Enrique, could you send us the slides after the presentation? I could try and see if I could export it as a PDF onto our document section on the MindGauge page, but all the information that I covered should be there, because there's a tutorial on how to submit a budget request, purchase request, and there's the SABC guidelines, which is about 8 or 9 pages, but it covers over the do's and don'ts and what we are all about. Alex, no, if you've attended this, then you don't need to attend the second meeting, because it's just going to be me doing this all over again. Unless you love my face and voice, you don't have to attend to that. But before everyone dips, there is a link that needs to be sent out so you can verify that you attended. Blake, do you have that link? Can you paste that in or?
I might. Give me just a minute. Yeah, I'm working from 2 computers today, and I just have to send it to myself.
I think I can try and do it. Let me see if Apple products want to cooperate. Well, let me just paste from my phone.
I have the attendance link doc here. And let's see, afternoon sessions. Okay. I think that's what this is. It'll just take me a second to send that. And then I did want to just kind of, if you don't mind me taking just a couple minutes, there's a couple like how to make your life easier in doing purchase requests and things, and just a few little tips and tricks that I want to share real quick. Let's see. I'll get that link posted in the chat in just a couple seconds. Shoot.
What is the soonest we can request funding? Is it like as soon as we can if our organizations are registered? Re-registered?
So yeah, for the re-registration process, you're eligible to request once you have your re-registration done, and then also once all the officers, executive officers on your roster on MyEngage have accepted their terms and conditions. But otherwise, the budget request process is open right now. So, and then if you submit a request and your officers aren't all squared away with their terms and conditions, I'll just email you and say, we can't look at this until that's done. So it shouldn't be all that big of a deal.
So I'll share just a couple real quick helpful tips. When you do your budget request that gets sent to SABC for approval, if you're looking at some supplies on Amazon, Amazon is notorious for changing their pricing literally within a few minutes. So by the time it gets approved by SABC and then it comes to me and I'm doing your shopping for you, sometimes the price has either gone up a little or down a little. I would suggest if you're requesting supplies from Amazon, get your grand total and then add a few more dollars, maybe, depending if it's a large order or smaller order, $5, $10 extra. That way SABC gives you that extra money and we can always return it to SABC. But if the price goes up a couple dollars, technically I'm not supposed to spend beyond your budget. So a way to avoid that is just ask for a little extra, have that cushion there. Another thing is sometimes Amazon says something's available and we go to check out and it says, yeah, it's available, but from 3 different suppliers and half of it's going to get here this week and half won't be there for another 3 weeks. So sometimes I try to look for the best alternative option to make sure your supplies gets here on time. That's another good reason to maybe request a little bit more of a cushion. And I can reach out to you and say, hey, we didn't find your product, but there's this other product that's available quicker or cheaper. And that way we can get you your supplies without having to go through canceling your request altogether, having you submit a new budget request to SABC, which just burns up so much time. The other thing I was going to mention, once you get those funds allocated from SABC and they've said, yep, here's your $100 for supplies, and you go to create your purchase request, the purchase request is the part that comes to Michaela and myself, and we'll actually go acquire your supplies. When you first create that, there's a little button that says Populate from Budget. And it's really important that you click that because it tells us that you're using the funds you were approved to get from SABC. Otherwise, if you don't click that, it looks like you're trying to spend money that you don't have. And it's just one of those goofy things with MyEngage. So it's a little clunky, but as long as you click that tab, then we're good to go. We know that you have those funds, it's been approved, and that's what you're trying to spend with that purchase request. Trying to think if there's any other main things. Oh, another good rule is if it's something like we can definitely do purchases from Amazon, from Party City, from different t-shirt vendors that we use locally, Staples. So like if you're getting supplies from those stores, there's no problem. But if it's a store that we haven't done business with before, we might not be able to do that purchasing for you. And in those instances, you need to still do your budget request to get the funds from SABC, but then you would have to purchase yourself and then take your receipts and submit it with the reimbursement form, and we'll cut you a check to pay you back. So if there's ever any questions about, do I have to purchase this myself and get a refund, or can you purchase for me? I'm a great person to reach out to. I'll try to respond as quickly as possible. And then if you would purchase yourself, I can give you a copy of the university's tax exempt form so that when you purchase those supplies, you can get them tax exempt. We can't reimburse you for taxes paid. So if you would purchase something yourself and pay $4 in taxes, you won't get that $4 back. You would unfortunately just have to eat that cost because the university will not reimburse for taxes. So yeah, I think those are the main things that I wanted to point out just to help you guys be successful in getting all your supplies. And like I said, any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to try to grab that attendance link and post that in the chat, and I'll also post my email so you know how to reach out to me.
I think I got the link in the chat. If anyone can try that and let me know if it works. But yeah, so that link, that Google form link is just you put down your info so we know that you were here, and then you'd be free to go unless anyone has any other questions they'd like to run by. Cool. Thank you, Molly. So then, yeah, you just forward that link and then you're free.
Kenny and Blake, just so you all know, I'm getting ready to send you all an email, and also including SABC, the Veteran Center, the faculty advisor, and a couple other people. That way we can just start this conversation and hopefully schedule a meeting on Zoom sometime, or yeah, that would be really cool.
Yep, that sounds good to me, Tori. Yeah, good seeing you too, Alex and Enrique. I'm honestly not sure of the requirements for an event to be commuter cash eligible. I believe only events that are commuter cash eligible are those put on by the OSI, but I can look into that and try to get back to you. Let me write that down so I remember this. Cool. All right, sounds good to me. So I'll look into that and email you at some time in the next week, Enrique.